Today, I'm joined by Hollee Becker, a writer and college essay coach who has helped countless students find their voice in one of the most high-pressure processes they'll ever go through. College admissions today feels more competitive, more visible, and more overwhelming than ever, especially for students growing up in places like the Northeast. Grades, test scores, rankings, and constant comparison often dominate the conversation. In this discussion, we're breaking down what actually matters in the admissions process, how students can tell their stories authentically, and how to approach college applications with clarity, confidence, and perspective. Hollee, welcome to Disrupt for Good.
Hey guys, I'm Hollee Becker. I'm a college essay coach. Happy October 17th. Congrats to everyone who submitted their applications. Hey guys, I'm Hollee Becker. I'm a college essay coach. Happy October 28th. We are 4 days away from that big November 1st deadline. Hey guys, I'm Hollee Becker. Happy Sunday. Hey guys, I'm Hollee Becker. I'm a college admissions coach. Happy Friday. TGIF. Things to do if you just got deferred. College decision drop updates. Guys, I'm Hollee Becker. I'm a college admissions coach. Happy Tuesday, February 3rd. Last night we had two surprise ED2. February 1st, which means it is officially ED2 month. Hey guys, I'm Hollee Becker. I'm a college admissions coach. Happy February. I think I can speak for all of us when I say we're happy that the chaos of January and all the EA decisions is now behind us. Admissions decision at Wisconsin. Hey guys, I'm Hollee Becker. I'm a college admissions coach. As you know by now, UW-Madison, Wisconsin dropped their EA. Guys, this is not a drill. University of Michigan decisions are out.
So, Hollee, how did you get started as an essay coach, and what first sparked your interest in working specifically in the college admission space?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I don't come from a traditional admissions background. I come from the journalism space. I got my master's in journalism at NYU, and I was living and working in New York City in the magazine industry for probably like 10 plus years, writing for probably every magazine you could think of. And then I moved to the suburbs and had babies, and I did what every writer with kids did back then in the early 2000s. I started a mom blog, and it ended up becoming sort of popular. And at the same time, my kids were like toddlers. So I had all of these high school girls as my babysitters, and they all read my blog, so they knew I could write. And so they asked me if I would look at their college essays. And, the last time I had looked at a college essay was in the 80s when I was applying to college. And when I looked at their essays and I saw that everything that college admissions entails now, I realized two things really quickly. It's number one, the college landscape was totally different and so much more competitive. And number two, these kids weren't getting any kind of guidance for this new competitive landscape from their high schools. Even the private school kids that came to me who kind of thought they were getting guidance, they weren't getting the kind of modern guidance that today's college landscape required. So I just kind of took my journalistic background and dove into researching everything I could about college admissions. And I started, I started helping high school babysitters, and then it was just word of mouth from there. All of a sudden, someone gave my name to, their cousin in Atlanta or their friend's son in New York, and it kind of snowballed. And then once COVID hit, number one, colleges went test optional and added a million more essays, and people got more comfortable working with someone virtually. So my business pretty much exploded. Up until that time, I've been doing it as a side hustle. My blog had led to columns writing for Parents Magazine and Huffington Post Parents. But once COVID hit, I had to pivot because number one, I loved it. I loved working with kids, which was something I never considered in my entire life before. I love being part of their life during this process. And number two, at the risk of sounding like whatever, I just kind of felt like they needed me. And it took off from there.
I love that. I love that you found something that is your passion that almost manifested and snowballed into like a business and a job that really has become so successful and something that people really need at such an incredible point in their lives. It's
Honestly, it
really
was,
something so
you're
special.
right. It was completely organic. And I tell people this all the time. I tell my daughter and my daughter's friends, like, find something you love to do. Just start doing it. Because even, I knew I liked writing. So I started out as a journalist, but never in a million years thinking that this is where my path will lead. And you just don't know where the path is going to lead. So just like with college admissions, where I tell these kids to be open to different schools and different kinds of campuses, you have to be open with your career too. Just do what you love, and I promise it all works out.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I feel like that makes so much sense, especially in like a world like today where you really don't know where you're going to end up. And so that's really such an amazing story. And that kind of leads me
Thanks.
to the next question that I have for you, which is one of the hardest parts of the admissions process is helping a student explain who they are in just 500 to 750 words. So, how do you help students uncover their inner voice and identify the story that truly represents who they are as that individual?
So this is a great question, and it's also my favorite question because helping these kids find their story is my absolute favorite part of the process. I would say 90% of them come to me and they say, like, I have nothing to write about. I don't have a story. I'm so basic. Like, they don't think they have a story because, when you're 17, 18 years old, you've never been asked, who are you? You know who your parents think you are. You have an idea who your teachers think you are, who your coaches think you are, but you've never really sat down and examined your own life and thought about who you are and what you value and what you care about. So over like the last 10 years, I've kind of come up with this. It's a very long brainstorming document. It's probably about 15 pages, but it's where I start with all of my students. I give them the document, and it's made up of questions that they think they're answering simple questions like what kind of phone case do you have, and what's your favorite breakfast, or what's like something you lost that you can't get over losing, or what's your favorite gift, or something you've never thrown out, or something that's named three things on the shelves in your bedroom. And I tell them just to answer, kind of give me your first, like, whatever comes in your mind, your first impulse. So they think they're just answering these questions, and they are. But what happens is when I go through these 15 pages, I'm not just looking for like a fun story to tell. I'm looking for themes that emerge. I'm looking for character traits and values that tell me who this person is. Like, did this person say their favorite meal was something that their grandmother cooked for them from the time they were little? And so I know that like family is important to them. Are they someone that read 150 books last year just because they were interested in a topic? So I know that they're all about intellectual curiosity. So I'm looking for these character traits. And then once I can highlight three or four character traits, then I go back to the fun little stories that they're telling me. Did they convince their parents to let them adopt a guinea pig? Did they learn how to fix a flat tire? And then we take the fun little story and we use it to showcase the values and quirks and character traits that make them unique. Because the only way to stand out right now in college admissions with test optional and the Common App, which has made it so easy to apply to so many schools, is to tell them a story that shows them who you really are, to show the admissions officers not what's on the page, but what's off the page.
Right. No, absolutely. Because you're not standing in the room, so you really got to get as much as you can on that paper to really showcase who you are. So that makes a lot of sense. And I know for myself, I was struggling very much so with trying to figure out what to put down on that page of explaining
What'd
who
you
I
write
am during
about?
that personal statement. I actually, prior to wanting to go into real estate, I was explaining to, I guess, the person I was working with that I was trying to become an EMT, that I wanted to go into medicine, which is such an audible of where I am at now. It's
That's
crazy.
wild.
The week before the final exam, I was kicked out of the program because you only get two tries for the practical exam. And so I was so close to, finishing the program, but unfortunately, I didn't make it past the other part of the exam. And so we Audible did explain that part of the story and how I became an EMR instead of an EMT and, flipped the script a little bit. And I applied here at Tulane as a biology major, switched my major to, real estate. But, I came here thinking that that's what I wanted to do, but that was kind of what my essay was about. And I really never in a million years did I think that that was what I was going to write about because, I didn't think that failure was something that, we
That's what I
should
was
be
just going to
writing
say. I'm
about.
so happy you wrote about failure. You weren't afraid to show vulnerability and what you learned from that. And that's the thing. These kids think they have to be perfect on paper, and it's not about that. Like what you did was beautiful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Like, I did not know that at the time, but I think that something that is so unique and so personal to us really does make you shine through. And I don't think that these college admissions counselors are really, or reps are looking for that type of perfection anymore these days. So
Right.
completely agree.
I
Yeah.
love that you wrote about that. I think that's amazing.
College admissions feels more competitive than ever. And has the process actually changed, or does it feel more intense now that everything is so public, through social media and through
Well, both. It's both.
Instagram and
Like
everything?
it's both. Number one, like I said, test optional and the Common App, which is what these students use to apply. You can apply to up to 20 colleges basically at once. You just have to add on the supplemental essays for each college. And test optional has made schools seem within limits to students who wouldn't have otherwise applied. So, number one, it actually has become more competitive because it's almost like a baseline now that kids are applying to between 10 and 20 schools when it was much less just 10 years ago. And number two, social media just makes everything that much more heartbreaking. Like I have such a love hate relationship with the high school Instagram posts. All the high schools now, the minute someone not gets in, but commits to college, they post on their high school account the baby
Right.
picture and the school, and it builds excitement. And I love that. Like kids should be celebrated because it is such an achievement to get into your college, especially, if you've been dreaming about it since the time you were 10 years old. A lot of times you see these high school pictures of the kids when they're babies, they're fully wearing like a Tulane hat or a Michigan sweatshirt. And you want to be able to celebrate that, but at the same time, it's so heartbreaking and it sends the other kids who haven't gotten decisions yet and who are still waiting into a panic. And that's when students like that start switching up their game plan halfway through and they think like, oh, I need to ED2 somewhere else now because I need to commit right away. When in fact, they really have until May 1st to commit. So it's such a double-edged sword. I love that these kids are celebrated and they should be, but I hate that it makes the ones that are still waiting feel so insecure about the process.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. And I also think, sometimes on TikTok, people post their, videos of themselves waiting, from junior year, with their like 1111 make a wish
Right.
of them wanting to get into this school, which is amazing. And then all of a sudden they ED'd or they waited for their EA and then they get in and, someone else is sitting in their bedroom and, they're having the worst night of their lives because they didn't get into their dream school. And it's just, sometimes you got to think about that perspective as well. So
Then you have,
process.
it's not just the initial decision, you have the friends posting for them. And then, a lot of kids here in the Northeast, right away they go into a big party and it's all decorated for the school and all of their friends are there. And sometimes you've got to go to that party for a kid who's going to a school that just rejected you. And that's hard, but it's also a life lesson because that's life. That's what jobs are like. That's what it's like in the real world. But those are hard lessons for someone who's 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, I think it's the first time in their lives that they're really, experiencing something like that, where they're seeing, that life's not fair at all times, because right now, sometimes for some of my friends, they're not getting their dream job or they're not getting,
Right.
something that they're, wishing that they could have gotten versus, the other person's getting their dream job in New York and they're, still trying to figure it out. So we're all at different points in our lives, but I think it's very similar. The theme is still
Right,
present.
because
So
LinkedIn is like the college, it's like the high school posting accounts. LinkedIn is the same with internships
literally,
and
it's the
jobs.
same exact thing.
It's like same
It's
sense of panic.
crazy. It is. It's so funny because people like will start posting, when they're like sophomores in college that they already have something lined up for the following, not even this upcoming summer, but the
My son's
following.
my Dylan's a sophomore. He's dealing with this right now. Every day, another friend is posting an internship for next summer, like 2027, not even this summer. It's
Yeah,
hard.
it's hard. It's so stressful. And, at such a young age, it really puts so much pressure on these kids. Like, it really just adds to that, self-esteem and that, problem that I really do think it does help you in the long run. But, within the present moment, I do think it really is, a difficulty. Um, and so, I do think also, students in the Northeast, grow up in one of the most competitive environments in the world. So how does living in this region, fundamentally change the admissions process compared to other parts of the country?
Well, that's an interesting question because, well, number one, you also have like LA and South Florida and Chicago. I think there's different areas where they're competitive within their own area. Like we feel the Northeast because we're here. But really, you are competing, as much as this sucks, you're really competing against the kids in your own high school. That is who you are being compared to. You're being compared. Your schedules are being compared, your rigor is being compared. If you didn't take a test like the SAT or ACT, but the majority of the kids in your high school did, that's going to work against you. Everything is being compared against your high school because there's so much grade inflation now that it's become more and more difficult for colleges to compare students outside their own high school, because even within the same town, each high school has its own scale, and some weight classes you get an extra 1 percentage point, some give 1.5, some give GPAs out of a 6.0, some don't even use a 4.0 scale, and you get like an 80 or a 90. So it becomes impossible for admissions officers to be able to understand the record of each individual student unless they're only comparing them against the students in their own high school. And now, coming from the Northeast, what makes it even more difficult is there's probably 20 colleges that everybody wants to go to. So you're competing against the kids in your own high school, and then outside of that, within the greater Northeast, everybody wants to go to the same schools. So there's only so many seats, and every year the number of application goes up. Right now, the hottest schools are the Southern and SEC schools, and most of those schools have caps on out-of-state admissions. Like a school like UT Austin, 75% of the incoming freshman class has to be from in-state. So you're talking about out-of-state admissions rates at a lot of these schools that are 10% and below. And when everyone is applying, it makes it even more competitive.
It's insane. It
It's
really is.
crazy.
It's
It's crazy.
mind-boggling. Yeah, because they're all competing for that, particular spot. And, I think that, as the Ivies get so hard, then, it shifts to the Michigan and the Texas and, all those schools that really have such limited spots for those students that are reaching for those schools that unfortunately can't now attend, and it's hard. It really is. And I came from such a competitive high school myself. I know that for myself and my classmates, a lot of us were at all times talking about college. It was such a common theme within our school. And it really did matter, the types of classes you were taking, the honors, the AP, whatever you could do to really step it up, to really get to that level, to differentiate yourself. But I'm wondering, do you think that's what really puts yourself at that level, to really put yourself against the other person at your high school,
So
or is it?
here's the saddest part about all of this. So you need all of that. Like if you go to a competitive high school, your rigor has to be right up there with everybody else's. If you're applying to, the T10s, T20s, but that is just the baseline now. That's what gets you to the front door. you need now so much more to make your way through that door. Like I always joke when I went to Tulane, and when I applied, I was like, I'm a cheerleader. And they're like, great. Do you want to come to Tulane? Now you need a whole narrative. You need
Right.
a story. You need to start planning. Sadly, your fresh, actually, as much as I hate to say it, if you're aiming for Ivy Leagues or a Stanford or a Duke, you almost need to start planning in middle school. Make sure you're on that advanced
Wow.
math track from the beginning. You need to start taking electives in 9th and 10th grade that are going to fit the story of whatever intended major you checked on the Common App. Everything has to fit together. It's almost like you're branding yourself. And when you're in 9th grade, like, how old are you? You are so young. You barely know anything yet. And you kind of have to decide and pick your courses and your extracurriculars based on where you're going to be applying to college 3 years from now, which is insane. It is so much pressure for these kids to figure out who they are and who they want to be when they're adults. And they're like 15 years old.
Right. And I feel like, at that age, you should be thinking about, what sport I should be playing or what extracurricular, I should be involving myself in, or, you know, what arts or, performing arts I should want to be a part of. I feel like it's so crazy that nowadays you have to really think about such crazy decisions like college at an age like 14 years old. I feel like back in the day, at least for me, even, and I'm saying back in the day, which is like 8 years ago, college wasn't really at the forefront of my mind. And I feel like as you go year after year after year, it just gets more and more and more competitive and more
It's gotten
difficult to
worse
really get
every
into.
year since COVID. It's gotten worse every
Yeah.
year. And it's sad to me because, you know, I get these, I get DMs all day long from kids saying to me, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And the answer is they didn't do anything wrong. They're all taking the hardest classes. They're taking the SAT and ACT, and they're getting 34s, 35s. They're getting that 1500, which, should open every door, but no longer does. And they just want to know, like, what else could I have done? And the problem is there just simply aren't enough seats. And that's why the story that you're telling in your application and the proof that you're showing, you need to now show evidence and proof of the story you're telling in your essays. And so, what I mean by that is your activities and everything you've done on your activity list has to reflect who you're telling them you are in your essays, and your extracurriculars, and whoever you're telling, all the character traits that you're showing them through your essays have to then be backed up by the rec letters you're getting from your teachers and your high school counselor. And that's the other thing. Like, these kids, on top of everything else, some of them go to big high schools where they only get 5 minutes with their high school counselor. They've got to make sure that counselor knows who they are as a person, so that when they go to write their school report, a lot of kids don't even know that their counselors are ranking them against the kids in their grade. And they have so
Mm.
much power. So you got to make sure that that relationship's intact. You got to make sure you got two great relationships with teachers in the courses that reflect what you want to do with your intended major. It's so much planning that you have to start doing at such a young age. It's way too much pressure, and I feel like it's just not fair to these kids.
For me, I think that it was something that was at the forefront of my mind starting at maybe junior year, something that came to my mind once I started maybe thinking about touring colleges. Um, but I really didn't think about all of the components that, were so important until the point of, oh, I need to take the ACT and start studying, because, it wasn't something that was so present at the time. But I think that, as we said, like the years really have changed and the time has changed since COVID, which is really something else, which is
And the
insane.
worst part about it is that the whole process has just become so opaque. Like, my daughter Emma applied to Tulane in 2019. And back then, it was right before COVID. You could pretty much figure out who was going to get in where back then. There were always a couple surprises, but you could you knew if someone had the grades and the stats and were active. Now it's become so opaque because you have schools saying they're test optional when they're really not. You have schools that are asking for 2, 3, 4 essays, and then you don't even know if they're going to read them, how important reading them is actually going to be. You don't know. Some of them will ask for 3 rec letters. Some will say, we require 1, but you can send up to 4. No one knows what they're supposed to be doing in this admissions process. It's
Right.
made most of the kids that come to me don't even know what their unweighted GPA is because their high schools aren't providing it. So there's opaqueness on the level of the high school, there's opaqueness on the level of the colleges, and the kids are more confused than ever because they don't know on their end what they need to be doing.
As AI is starting to get more and more, incorporated within a lot of lifestyles and, within a lot of universities, I'm hearing that, AI is starting to get integrated within college admissions. Can you elaborate on that? I feel like that's very interesting.
Well, there's schools that have come right out. Virginia Tech is a great example. They've come right out and said, we're going to be using we're still going to be using human readers, but we're also going to be using AI readers. So you hear that, but what does that mean exactly? Like, what are it's still opaque. Like, they're telling us they're using AI readers in addition to human readers, and to be fair, I think a lot of colleges have been doing this for years on the DL and we just don't know about it. But
Right.
we still don't know what that means. Are there certain keywords they're looking for? What does that mean for the essays? AI, it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of kids thought AI would be a great crutch to them in writing their college admissions essays. But the problem with that is, like I said, it is so much about narrative and storytelling and showcasing your unique values and quirks and character traits. The essay is not about good writing, which a lot of people get tripped up. Like, they'll throw it into Grammarly. People have been using Grammarly for years, and they'll throw it into, Gemini or chat, and they're trying to, make it sound like very polished. And then so it comes to me and it sounds like it's got corporate lingo. It sounds like a
It's not
business pitch.
genuine.
It's
Right.
not genuine at all. And if I can tell in 2 seconds, so can the admissions officers.
Right. Of
However,
course.
if AI is reading this essays, is that what they want? Like, we don't know. It makes it even more, it's just one more thing that makes it even more difficult to determine what these schools are looking for.
I really hope that humans really are reading them, because all these kids are putting in so much time and effort into this process that, you hope that you receive that in return with the
They
colleges and
work
universities.
so hard. They really work so hard because it's not just the Common App essay. And I feel so bad every year. I'll get a student that thinks it is just the Common App essay. And then August 1st hits and the Common App opens and they realize that every school they're applying to has, 1, 2, or 3 extra essays that they have to write. It is a lot for them. Their kids end up writing between 25 and 30 essays. And then, that first round comes around of EA and they just get that there's like those 2 nights in January where you could get up to 10 deferrals. And it's heartbreaking because they're pouring their heart and souls into these essays because the schools are asking so much of them, only to be then, told either, obviously some get accepted and that's great, but a lot of them are getting not even just rejected, which I would rather see, but the deferrals and the wait lists that give them hope and have them hanging on until May or June or even July. It's so hard for them, like,
Right.
you want to be able to make a decision and get a roommate and start meeting people going to the school and start planning your dorm room and all that fun stuff. And you're kind of put on hold. And it's all because there's too many kids applying for not enough seats, and because no one really knows anymore what these schools are looking for. I can help these kids, figure out who they are and tell their story to the best of their ability. But even then, it doesn't always work. There's just
Yeah.
not enough room at each school for everyone that wants to attend.
So how much pressure do you think students are putting on themselves versus, pressure coming from their parents or their individual high schools? Because some of these private schools, I know, specifically from some of my friends who are from areas like New York City, they do put pressure their on their students, and specific
So
parents. I know that as well.
I work with a lot of kids in the city, and I have kids right now telling me they need essay drafts for next year because they go to private school in New York. And to me, the high schools, those kinds of high schools are putting unnecessary pressure. There's no reason to have a draft of your essay in February. I am all for having your essay completed by August 1st. But right now, like, first of all, these kids are just coming off of midterms or finals, a lot of them. They have so much on their plates. They're already overwhelmed. The last thing they want to do is sit down with me for 2 hours and figure out who they are and what they're writing about next year. It's a little too early for that. I'm just starting to send out my brainstorm documents now, and I say to them, take your time, take the next month. Spring to me is the ideal time to get started, but these kids in New York City are having that added pressure from the high school to get everything done now. Parents tend to, around Memorial Day weekend, they start freaking out, and then they start calling me and saying, they start giving me a timeline. Like, I want this done by this before this one leaves for camp, or that one leaves for a team tour, or whatever it is. So there's pressure from parents as well in terms of when to get things done and where they think the kids should be going. Again, every year since COVID, I see more and more parents. I see like the footprints of them in the Google Docs. You know, you see the 2 spaces after the period, you see the
Of
corporate
course.
lingo. Like, now I'm kind of like, oh, good, 2 spaces after a period means the parents were there, but at least they didn't use AI. You know, it's like a trade-off. But parents are doing a lot more hand holding. And I kind of had to go back and think, I think this current crop of kids might have been in their last year of elementary school or their first year of middle school when COVID hit. So the parents are so much more anxious and so much more involved. If for the most part, like, it used to be probably around 90% of the time, I'd get a student and the parents would hire me and be completely uninvolved until the very end. Now I'm getting parents like, they're sending me their ideas, and it's a lot.
It's a
It's a
lot.
lot for the kids because you're sending your kid a message. When you're so involved, you're sending the kid the message that you don't have faith in them. And you
You
want
don't
your
trust
kid to
them.
feel as confident as possible going into this process. You need to be confident in order to be vulnerable, which is what I try to tell the parents. Like, your child has to be so secure in who they are, like you were, to be able to tell a story to the admissions committee that's going to show their vulnerability, that's going to show what they've learned from failure, that's going to show them that they're real and human and they fall down sometimes, but they've learned how to get up in a way unique to them. And it's so important that kids feel free to do this, that they feel secure enough to do this, and that they feel like they can explore who they are without a parent or a teacher or a coach trying to impose their own opinion on them.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you mentioned the 2 spaces after the period because, of course, my dad is one of those people that did that.
Well, lawyers are
So,
the worst.
absolutely, yeah. No, and by the way, it was so funny because when we would do like review my papers in middle school, he put that habit in my head or like instinctively put that habit in my head. So I would put the 2 spaces after the period and then up until like the middle of high school, I stopped doing that. And I'm like, why did you do that to me? Like, it was just something that was ingrained in me. But I hate the helicopter parents. It's always been something that just is so frustrating because I feel like during at least this process and many other parts of the kids' lives, like it's so important for them to have this control and this the narrative and the ability to really speak freely and to have I think that one-on-one time even with you I think is so great, like, and so incredible to like really explore who they are during the process of finding the college that really speaks to them. I think it's really important to have their parents back off a little bit because
Right.
it's
I
just
get parents
really a
calling
lot.
me every year, like late in the game, when they find out they just want to know like the topic. And I'll get parents saying, like, what do you mean she's writing about Billie Eilish? What do you mean he's writing about Minecraft? What do you mean she's writing about her 10 ear piercings? And here's the thing, like I said before, the topic is you. The topic is the student. The story you're telling, the fun little thing to catch the admissions officer's attention, the hook, which is the buzzword that everybody's using, is just the vessel. So parents, a lot of parents, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of parents are thinking about college admissions the way it was when we applied, where you wrote, you should accept me because I'm organized, I'm a good planner, I'm a hard worker. That's not what your essays are about anymore. Like we've been talking about this whole time, they want to find out who you are. They know you're a hard worker. If you're at a competitive high school, they see your GPA, they see your test scores, they see your rigor. They know that stuff about you. You need to show them something unique. They want to know what you're going to bring to their campus that nobody else will bring. They want to know the impact you're going to make there, how you're going to contribute. I see so many kids writing their like why this college essay about like focusing on what the college can give them. Like, I know that your college will make me a better lawyer or a better doctor. And I have to say to them, no, pause. You want to tell them what you're going to bring to them. How does your unique worldview, your unique character and quirks and personality and values, how does all of that number one fit with the college's values and priorities, and number two, what are you going to do while you're there to leave it a better place once you leave? And it's like a mind-blowing moment because these kids have never thought about it that way before. They think they're supposed to just go on the website and say like, I am excited because you offer rigorous academics combined with collaborative curriculum. And I'm like,
Right.
that's great, but anybody can write that. You need to tell them what you're going to do to make a difference while you're there. And that's where the light bulb sort of comes on. And that's where the kids understand it sort of intuitively before the parents do. The parents still want to say, like, they still want it to be the way it was when we applied. But he's a hard worker and he's dedicated. So is everybody else.
Right. Everyone is. Yeah, we all are. We can all say that, and they'll never really see that until you actually, it's like the show not tell type of thing. Like actions speak louder than words, and I feel like you can only really do that through
I
that
had someone
essay,
this
that personal
last
statement.
cycle. I mean, I just don't want to name. He just got into like a very good school. I won't name the school because I don't want. And the dad called me and he said, I heard he's writing his essay. So first of all, I encourage the kids to show their parents their essays if they want to. They certainly don't have to, and a lot of kids choose not to. I get some parents then asking me to show them the kids' essays, and I will not do that. It's in my contract from the beginning. Like, you can only read the essays if your child says it's okay, because these essays have become like journal entries. So I had a
Right.
dad call me.
Personal.
He had heard from a parent of his son's friends that his son was writing about quote unquote video games. And he called me saying, like, what do you mean he's writing about video games? These colleges are just going to think he's just going to sit in his room all day and write about video games. I'm like, first of all, that's what kids do now. I'm like, but second of all, he's not
Right.
just writing about video games. He's writing about how he created a world where he built a courthouse and made a constitution with amendments and held each player accountable for the wrongdoings, whatever they were doing inside each game. It's showing him to be an innovator and someone who cares about building societies and putting rules in place when necessary, but also like having amendments, realizing that sometimes rules need to be adjusted as time goes on. I'm like, it showcased every amazing quality about your son. They're not going to finish that essay and think this is a kid who plays video games all day. They're going to finish reading that essay and think we need to bring this kid to our campus because he's going to make a difference in our community just like he did here.
And let me guess, the dad was out on the end of that phone call. He didn't have any words to say because he was speechless and didn't
Yeah, he
really.
was exactly right. He was like,
Right.
wow, okay.
Wow. Okay, I was completely wrong. I didn't have anything to add to that. Right. He's like, oh, I had that completely wrong. Yeah, exactly. Love
Yep.
that.
That's
I
a
love
perfect
hear the.
example of how the
Yeah.
topic is just a vessel and the story is you. It's who you are, what you do, what's important to you. And that's what these kids have to think about. I tell them, like, when they're trying to find their voice for their essays, I have them listen to Taylor Swift lyrics. I have them listen to like the narration at the beginning and end of shows like Ted Lasso and Grey's Anatomy and How I Met Your Mother, so they can understand how they're supposed to be speaking to the admissions officers. And then I have them sometimes send me their first paragraph in a text or write it in their notes app, or pretend they're writing a letter home from camp, so that they understand the voice is just like we're talking here. It should be conversational. It shouldn't be like, I, however, felt that it shouldn't be stiff or robotic. It shouldn't
It's not
feel
forced.
like a school paper. It should be conversational. It should be just like a journal entry. And I think once the kids understand that, it gives them so much freedom to just tell their story, because they're used to that. That they
Right.
understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, just switching that perception in their head to really understand that that's what these colleges are really looking for during that admission
Right. They
process,
don't
I
need
think is so
topic
important.
sentences. They don't need conclusions.
No,
Like, just write from your heart, and your story will come out in a
right.
unique and organic way.
Absolutely. All right, last question. I think it's going to bring it all home. If you could reset one expectation for students and parents going through the college admissions process, what would it be?
Oh my God, I say this all the time. You will be okay. You will be okay. This is just a moment in time. Your college decisions are not who you are. Your portal doesn't define you. I tell this to my students all the time. Like, I know when you open that portal and you see or a deferral or a denial, that is like such a gut punch. And I think it is important to kind of live in those feelings for a little bit, to live in that disappointment and feel it, and go do, eat ice cream or go shopping, do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel better in that moment. But then you kind of have to take a deep breath and move forward and know that there's so many other opportunities out there that you might not have even thought about. So now's the time to open yourself up to the other paths, to other schools. Not everybody's path is going to be a straight one. Some of them are going to be bumpy. Some of them are going to have curveballs. You may go somewhere freshman year and then end up transferring. You may end up going to a school that you thought you didn't want to go to, and you may end up loving it. It's really not about the school as much as it is about what each student does at the school. And I try to tell them that their star is going to shine wherever they go to college. It's all about what they do once they step their feet on that campus.
I love that. And I love also when you speak to your, audience on TikTok and on social, and you kind of end most of your TikTok and, all those videos, and you kind of say to them like, just go enjoy the weekend, like go do
I'm
epic
so
shit.
glad you watched my TikToks till the end. I feel
I
like no
do.
one does. They're so long.
Wait, I'm not even applying to college anymore, and I still love watching them because I just think they're so entertaining. But anyway, I think that it's so great that you remind, your audience to continue to just enjoy their time, like while they're still
Right.
in
You only
high
get
school, and
one
to live
senior
in the
year of high
present.
school. You can't ever
Right.
go back to high school again. Like, you can go to graduate school, you can transfer college. You're not going back to high school. You're never having another senior year. You have to get out there and enjoy every minute of it. Enjoy all those fun. There's so many fun milestones senior year that will never be repeated. And I'm 56 now. I still remember my senior year of high school, and I want all of these kids to have those same memories. I don't want their senior year, I don't want them just to remember it as a time of like stress and chaos and disappointment. I want them to remember all the happy things that they should be doing right now. So I do try to encourage them to get out and do as much of that as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. So I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you coming on today and
This was
sharing
fun.
your perspective. This was so amazing. And everyone, please follow Essay Help by Holly. She's amazing, and she will help you guys with all of your essays and all of the amazing things related to college and all of that good stuff.
Thanks,
So
Dylan.
thank you so much for coming on
This was
today.
great. I really enjoyed it.
Oh,
Now
thank
get
you.
out there and go make some more memories.